I'm going to proceed to transfer my sketch to my plate. I have some tracing paper and a pencil. So something that I like to do is to make sure that I'm always maintaining the same size, a one-to-one size. So I make sure that my sketch actually matches pretty well my plate, and I'm gonna be careful to maintain those proportions as I go over with the sketch, with the transfer paper. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my tracing paper right on top of my sketch. I had beforehand retraced the outline of my plate. I actually simply took my plate and retraced the outline. This simply gives me a visual of where this needs to be. So because this is just a sketch, I'm not gonna be very concerned with detail at this point. I simply want to transfer all of that main image. So I'm gonna go ahead, retrace all those lines, and I'll be back with you right when I'm done doing this. All right, so now that I have traced my image into my tracing paper, I am ready to transfer my image to my block. So the most important thing to keep in mind is that the right reading of your image needs to be reversed, it needs to be mirrored into the block, so that when we do the printing, the print goes back into a right reading version of your image. So I know it's a little bit confusing, but everything that you need to remember is simply to reverse the image on the block. So to trace this image, I'm gonna be using some transferring material, but to illustrate the idea of the mirror image, I have here an example. This is a block that was used to print the dark blue of this print. So as you guys can see, the printing itself is actually a right reading image of the design, while the block is a mirror image of the design. So this is what we want to do. This is especially important if you guys have type, because sometimes with some designs, people sometimes forget, and that's okay. They might get away with it, but if you have type, you are not gonna get away with it. You're gonna notice that everything is backwards, and it's simply not going to work out the way you originally designed it. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the transferring technique so that you guys can see how it works. So to make the transfer paper, I'm gonna take a little bit of tracing paper, and I'm gonna add a little bit of red oxide. So it's also referred as iron oxide. So it's this really fine red powder. This has been traditionally used in printmaking because this material doesn't interfere with the chemistry of printmaking, meaning inks, solvents. So it has been used for centuries. So what I like to do is take a little piece of cotton, if you have available. In this case, I don't have cotton, so I took a little piece of a napkin or a paper towel. And what I do is I fold the corners in several times till I make a little ball. So the idea is that I have a round little ball that is going to allow me to do the spreading of the red oxide. So I'm going to go ahead and very gently start rubbing the red oxide into my tracing paper. So I'm pretty much making a carbon paper. It's just that this is not carbon, but it's the same principle. I had already done this in advance, so a finished piece of tracing paper with the red oxide is gonna look like this. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and start my transfer. What I wanna make sure is that once I have my trace ready to go, as you guys can see from my original sketch, And it's important to use the tracing paper precisely because it's translucent. What I can do is simply make sure that I flip it over so that the image is now reversed on the block. So you guys can see maybe this element that it's from your angle to the right, but on this transferring process is to the left. So the idea is that we always have the mirror version of it in the block. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first make sure that this doesn't move on me when I am working with it. So I'm going to put my sketch to the side, and I'm going to go ahead and align my tracing paper and my transfer paper. And you guys have a little bit of tape as part of your materials. So I'm going to take some tape. And now what I like to do is, let's see how I want to do this. I'm gonna try to fix my plate, and you guys will be working under a lot of different circumstances. So I'm kind of like adapting to what I have here. This is how I would do it at home too, so you guys can see the different possibilities. So what I'm doing right now is I'm attempting to fix the plate to my table so that it doesn't move on me. So I'm gonna put a few pieces of tape in the back of the plate so that it doesn't move. I'm just gonna press it down. Now I'm gonna align my trays, and I'm gonna fix that to the table as well. I'm gonna make sure that it's well aligned. I'm gonna double check that I have the right orientation, so I'm gonna look at my sketch and making sure that it's the right orientation. So it was not. So one more time, looking always at my original one-to-one sketch. So this sketch is a map and it's a guide. So I always have it on hand. If I didn't have it on hand, I could have accidentally traced my image backwards. So one more time, fixing my trays to the table. So now since my plate is fixed and my tracing paper is also fixed, now I can put my transfer paper under, and very carefully and very patiently I'm gonna retrace that image. You guys can try pencil. It's a little bit gentler on the paper, but if you want to put a little bit more pressure, I like to use a ball pen too. I can also feel the edge of the plate through the pieces of paper, and that also helps me decide where the paper is supposed to be. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the transfer. I'm gonna take my time. I'm gonna make sure that I'm getting most of the details and main areas of my sketch, of my design. All right, so I just finished tracing my paper, and something that is very, very useful is for you guys to write some information on your tracing paper. So just like I have some information on my sketch that indicates some of the elements, some of the sizes, here as well it says direction that I need to carve. So that kind of like indicates that I know which one is the front, which one is the back. But ultimately, you do the visual comparison and you will be able to keep track if you have the image reversed or not. When you work on your own image, that's gonna be easy because you're gonna be so familiar with your image already that it's gonna be fine. So something that I like to do before I move this assembly, before I take it apart, is to peek under to make sure that the transfer is working. So with one hand, I keep the pieces of paper against the block fixed in place, and very gently with my other hand, I can simply peek over and make sure that it is indeed transferring to a degree that is going to allow me to see it. So I'm happy with the result. So I'm gonna go ahead and just simply take the assembly apart. All right. So now, as you guys can see, I was able to transfer my image as a mirror image from my original sketch. And this is the process of transferring an image to a block.